Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Heidi Musser, and I'm the Associate Director, Graduate Financial Aid and Awards in Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, also referred to as GSPA for short. I'd like to welcome you all to this live session for Funding Your Graduate Education. In today's presentation, I will provide information regarding both internal and external funding, financial need funding, support for applying for major scholarships, and how you receive your funding and OSAP and loans. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our website within a few days in case you wish to revisit any of the content presented here today. If you require closed captioning, please click on the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen to start viewing closed captioning. I'm joined today by my wonderful colleagues, Miranda Bellotta, Laura Frazee, and Elena Machado, who are currently behind the scenes and will be responding to questions that come through during the presentation. So while I am presenting, you're encouraged to ask any administrative related questions about graduate funding that you may have by typing the question in the live Q&A section shown in the bottom center of your screen. Although I am hoping that many of your questions will be addressed during the webinar, at the end of the presentation, we will take time to address as many questions as we can that have come in so that the entire audience can benefit. If we run out of time and your question has not been answered or you have follow-up questions, we will be having a virtual live chat session on November 3rd from 10 to 12, where my team and I will be pleased to assist you. You're also encouraged to reach out to your department coordinator or graduate officer, associate chair, or supervisor for assistance. And my colleague is adding the links to those websites in the chat function here. Hopefully you took the opportunity to watch our 6-minute video on demystifying funding prior to joining us, so some of what I discuss may ring a bell. If you haven't seen it yet, please check it out on our website. We would appreciate your understanding that a lot of information is being shared today, and although we are subject matter experts, nerves can come into play during a live presentation, and an inaccurate detail could be conveyed unintentionally, especially during the Q&A period. As such, I encourage you to rely on our websites as the primary source of information. Finally, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work toward reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, and community building, and is centralized within the Office of Indigenous Relations. Okay, so without further delay, let's dive in. So the Graduate Awards team in GSPA works closely with departments and faculties to advertise, adjudicate, and administer a variety of internal and external awards, including the scholarship competitions I'll be speaking about a little bit later in the presentation. We work closely with external, i.e. government agencies, to manage major scholarship competitions and in turn provide direction to our department and faculty colleagues and to current and prospective graduate students regarding scholarship eligibility and the application processes. We also adjudicate and make decisions on internal award applications that require an assessment of a student's budget. So we look at the income versus the expenses to determine if the student has financial need. My team is also responsible for managing the payment of awards through Quest, which is our student system, and applying it to the student's account. Throughout the presentation, you'll hear me refer to awards, scholarships, and bursaries and wonder what the difference between them is. I'm just going to take a moment to explain. We use the word award often as an umbrella expression that encompasses a variety of funding, but specifically an award is something that is normally used for funding that's given based on financial need and other criteria such as leadership, community involvement, and merit. A bursary is something that is given primarily based on financial need, while a scholarship is given primarily on academic merit. So at Waterloo, we do provide minimum guaranteed funding for doctoral students who are in good academic standing for the first 4 years. So the first 12 terms of full-time registration. Minimum funding is reviewed annually, and any annual increase applies to both new, so incoming, as well as current eligible doctoral students. Our current minimum funding is $25,000 a year, but many programs offer more than this. If you're planning to apply for a master's program, funding may or may not be provided. It depends on the program you're applying for admission to. For master's students in research-based or thesis-based programs, we recommend that departments provide a minimum of $12,000 for the first year of full-time registration. Some departments do give more than that, so it's best to speak with the department coordinator for specifics. It's very important that you remember that graduate studies is a big financial commitment. You are encouraged to make an informed decision at the time when you are considering an offer of admission. There are many resources available to assist you financially during your graduate program, but institutional funding may not be sufficient. You're strongly encouraged to have sufficient personal financial resources, such as savings, loans from your government or bank, private lenders, family, friends, savings from co-op jobs or part-time employment, to also support the cost of your tuition, fees, and living expenses for your program, especially if you're not receiving any funding from your department, which is something that you will know when you're admitted to the program. If you're interested in finding out what the admission requirements and estimated program costs are for the program you're interested in applying to, I encourage you to visit our website under Future Students and then Programs. We also have a web page with approximate living costs that you're also encouraged to check out. You can navigate to this from our Future Students webpage under Funding Graduate School. And again, my colleague is putting a link in the chat function so that you can take a look at that. As I mentioned, excuse me, when you are admitted to a program, your offer of admission letter will provide details regarding any department funding you may be offered. That funding will normally be comprised of internal awards that do not require a specific application, as well as a teaching assistantship and/or research assistantship. There can also be other funding available through donor support that may or may not require an application. Again, as I mentioned, minimum funding is normally only provided to eligible students in research-based programs. We often get asked this about funding for course-based master's programs. There's limited funding available to students in these programs, but if eligible, you could apply for the Ontario Graduate Scholarship or the Queen Elizabeth II Graduate Scholarship in Science and Technology. And providing there is a significant research component in your program, a student in a course-based master's program could apply for a tri-agency master's scholarship. I'm going to be speaking about these scholarships a little bit later in the presentation. Because graduate programs can vary in the amount and type of funding they provide, if you have specific questions about what funding you may or could be receiving, or are interested in the application process and deadlines for applying for a TA or RA position, it's best to speak with your department graduate coordinator. So in case you're wondering what a TA or RA is, I'm just going to take a moment to explain. A TA is a teaching assistantship. This is a position held by students to assist faculty members with instructional responsibilities. In other words, you could be asked to teach a class, mark papers, hold drop-in sessions to help students. An RA is a research assistantship, which is a position you would hold to perform research duties for a faculty member. In other words, the research you'd be doing would be outside the scope of your own research that you would be doing towards your thesis. It differs from a graduate research studentship, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And unlike scholarships or awards, these positions are paid a salary on a monthly basis through payroll. Because a TA or RA may be part of your minimum funding, if you decline the opportunity, it will likely not be replaced with a scholarship. But if a TA or RA is offered to you in a term that doesn't work for you, or it's a course that requires more attention than you can afford, given other demands of your program, you may be able to make arrangements with your department to TA or RA in a later term. Another thing you need to also be aware of is that if you receive a TA or RA along with a scholarship in the same term, and this often happens, the scholarship will be paid once during that term, while the TA or RA is paid monthly at the end of each month. So it's important that you make sure you budget your financial resources appropriately. So a GRS, or graduate research studentship, is different from the graduate research assistantship I spoke about in the last slide, because a GRS directly supports you in your research while you're in a research-based program. It's financial support that is often paid via the supervisor's research grant and is used to support you while you are conducting your own research towards your thesis. It's paid as a scholarship on a termly basis. Another question we often get asked is about what kind of funding is available for international students. A couple I just want to highlight today are the International Doctoral Student Award, or the IDSA, and the International Master's Award of Excellence, or the IMA. The IDSA is available automatically to eligible international doctoral students each term without the need for an application, and is not part of your minimum funding. The number of terms you receive an IDSA for is dependent upon how you were admitted to the doctoral program. The value is normally equivalent to the difference between full-time domestic and full-time international doctoral tuition, and I encourage you to visit the IDSA website for full details. The IMA is available to eligible international students registered in a master's program. It's normally only given to students in research-based programs, but a department may award it to students in a coursework program if they choose. Faculties are given an allocation of awards and make the selection based on a student's application for admission to the program. If you're interested, there are some other international funding opportunities listed on our website that I draw your attention to, and the link will be added into the chat. Part of being a graduate student in a research-based program is actually sharing your research, explaining to others what it is that you're doing that is innovative and inspiring. You'll hopefully have the opportunity and interest in attending conferences to present your research. And in order to assist with costs associated with that, we have the Graduate Studies Conference Assistantship, which offers a maximum of $500 from GSPA or GSEF to reimburse you for expenses incurred. Applications are collected 3 times a year for this fund, and students can receive it a maximum of 1 time per year. So you'll see the logo and notice the reference to GSEF on the slide. GSEF refers to the Graduate Studies Endowment Fund, which was created in 2001-2002 by a graduate student referendum to provide some funding opportunities and help improve the graduate student experience. As part of the graduate tuition and fees, there is currently a $20 fee that goes to support GSEF initiatives, one of which is funding this program, the Conference Assistantship. If you're interested in learning more about GSEF, feel free to check out their website. All right, in this next set of slides, I'll be speaking about some programs available based on a financial assessment. We're fortunate to have various bursaries available to those who have demonstrated financial need. For these next set of awards, an assessment is done based on a specific award application that includes a budget. So we look at your income versus expenses, as well as a written explanation explaining your circumstances and financial plan. It's important to note that these financial assistance programs are simply that, to assist or supplement your own financial resources. They're not meant as a primary resource to support your entire expenses. It's expected that when you accepted an offer of admission, you did so with the understanding of what the cost would be, as well as what funding you may or may not be receiving. Of course, we understand, we're sympathetic to situations that arise outside of your control. And so we do have these needs-based programs available to assist you. The Graduate Student Contingency Bursary Program is for full-time international graduate students who experience extenuating circumstances that could not reasonably have been predicted or expected after starting in your program. It's available to provide short-term financial assistance for educational and reasonable living expenses. It is not typically provided to students who are within the first year of their program, and there's a limit on the number of times you can receive it. Master's students can receive it a maximum of 1 time, while doctoral students can receive it twice throughout their program. The value varies, but is restricted to a maximum based on the student situation and program. The maximum is currently $5,000 for doctoral students and research-based master's students, and up to $2,500 for course-based master's students. For domestic graduate students, there are full-time and part-time bursaries administered through the Student Awards and Financial Aid Office. They are meant as a supplement to other resources, your savings, employment income, parental or spousal contributions you already have. And it is expected that you will have applied and qualified for OSAP assistance or assistance through your home province in order to be considered. Students who become parents through birth or adoption may take up to 5 terms of uninterrupted leave during the first 20 months of birth or adoption. At Waterloo, we're very fortunate to be able to offer a parental leave bursary that provides up to 2 terms of funding to eligible students who become parents through birth or adoption. The value of the bursary is based on an assessment of previous income that you've been in receipt of during the 3 previous academic terms. Normally, the maximum value of bursary issued is $8,000 for 2 terms. And on average, we fund about 40 students per year through this program. We also have a daycare bursary available to full-time students to assist with daycare expenses, which can include those incurred through a daycare center, a home daycare, before and after care through schools or camps. The value is based on income, expenses, and the number of children requiring daycare. Applications are assessed on a term-by-term basis, and on average, we support 60 students per year through this program. We're very fortunate to have a Graduate Student Medical Leave Award, which is for research-based master's and doctoral students who need to change their registration status to inactive for medical reasons. You must have been registered full-time for at least 1 academic term and have been in receipt of a financial package from your department in the term immediately prior to going inactive. Medical leave documentation is required, which you submit directly to our Accessibility Services Office for assessment. It's completely confidential, so our office, GSPA, does not find out the medical reason why you need to go inactive. The maximum amount for this one-time award is $5,000. So interest-free loans are available to registered students if an emergency has arisen and you are waiting on another source of income, such as a scholarship, a TA or RA payment, or a loan. The emergency loan is for a short duration. It normally needs to be repaid within 90 days of being issued, and the value depends on your situation and method of repayment. Obviously, there's no deadline to apply because emergencies can occur at any time, and funding is normally available via direct deposit within 3 business days following approval. In this next set of slides, I'm going to talk about some of the major external scholarships that we manage on behalf of government agencies, and you can access more information on these next scholarships on the External Awards webpage. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on these next set of slides as I want to ensure I'm thoroughly explaining some things I think you should know, especially since there are some deadlines coming up that you need to be aware of in case you're planning to apply this year. The federal and provincial scholarship competitions normally occur in the fall term, with advertising starting as early as June. Deadlines vary depending on the competition, and results get released the following spring, so usually as early as March. Applications go through several reviews, including at the department and faculty level, as well as an institutional level review, depending on the competition. We strongly encourage that if you are eligible, you should apply for these scholarships, even though you may be receiving guaranteed minimum funding from your department. These scholarships are meritorious, and being successful can demonstrate how competitive you are if you have this on your CV. You are not automatically considered for these scholarships. You have to specifically apply for them during the competition cycle. Some of the tri-agency doctoral scholarships can be taken abroad. So if you're interested in pursuing a doctoral program at an institution elsewhere, this may be a possibility. Students who choose to study at Waterloo and are successful in the specific major federal and provincial competitions will also receive a President's Graduate Scholarship of at least $5,000. For these competitions, students normally require a minimum first class average, which at Waterloo is considered to be an A- or 80% in each of the last 2 full-time academic years to be eligible for consideration. An applicant's success can depend on a variety of qualities, including grades, research proposal, statement of interest, referee assessments, leadership skills, contributions or publications, and other meritorious scholarships held. Students who are not yet in a graduate program, so if you're in your last year of undergrad, you should be looking into the eligibility requirements and application processes of these scholarships, because you can apply for the CGSM and the OGS QE2 domestic scholarships before you're even in the graduate program. Okay, so the federal scholarships we most commonly manage are referred to as the tri-agency scholarships. These include the following: CIHR, or the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. So this is for research that's related to health sciences. NSERC, which stands for the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council. So this would include your STEM disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and math. And SSHRC, which is the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, which are the arts and social sciences. All of these tri-agencies provide funding at both the master's and doctoral levels. And applicants do need to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, although the Vanier competition, which is the most prestigious of the doctoral awards, is also open to international students. Funding ranges from $17,500 for 1 year for the master's scholarship to $50,000 per year for a doctoral scholarship, and can be held for up to 4 years depending on the scholarship awarded. Competitions take place in the fall and winter terms, with decisions normally released as early as March, and successful recipients can start their scholarship as early as the spring term or as late as the following winter term. Institutions receive quotas and can only award or send forward a limited number of applicants based on the allocations. Awarding decisions reside at the institutional level for master's awards and the national level for doctoral awards. Just to give you an idea of our quotas and the number of applications we receive, for the fall 2021 competition, our quota for CIHR masters was 7, and we received 30 applications. For the doctoral, our quota was 5, so we could send 5 forward to the national level competition, and we received 31 applications. For the NSERC Masters, we were allowed to award 50, and we received 253. For the doctoral, we were allowed to send forward 132, and we received 156 applications. And for SSHRC, masters, we were allowed to award 37, and we received 135 applications. And for the doctoral, we could send forward 39 to the national level competition, and we received 122 applications. For this current year's doctoral scholarship competition, which is underway, our quota for CIHR is 3, and we've received 21 applications. For NSERC, we can send forward 125, and we received 132. And for SSHRC, our quota is 38, and we received 100 applications. If you are planning to start a master's program next year, you're encouraged to consider applying for the CGSM this year. The first deadline coming up is November 18th. This is the deadline by which you need to request your Waterloo transcripts. The application deadline itself is December 1st. And the thing to keep in mind with this CGSM competition is that you're able to identify a maximum of 3 institutions where you want your scholarship application to be considered. If you're offered the scholarship by all 3 institutions, you can only accept one, and it's not transferable. The major provincial scholarship we manage the competition for is the Ontario Graduate Scholarship, or OGS, and its close counterpart, the Queen Elizabeth II Graduate Scholarship in Science and Technology. We call it the QE2, GSST for short. Students apply using the same application. However, the QE2 is only available to domestic students, while the OGS is available to both domestic and international. This scholarship is valued at up to $5,000 per term for up to 3 terms. And successful recipients also will receive the President's Graduate Scholarship on top. For this scholarship competition, we typically receive over 1,000 applications. This year's institutional quota is 199. 5 can be awarded to international students. And we also reserve 2 scholarships specifically to applicants who identify as Canadian Indigenous students. The OGS and QE2s are also not transferable. So if you're interested in undertaking graduate studies at a different institution within Ontario, you do need to find out what the application process and deadlines are for the scholarship competition at the other Ontario institutions. At Waterloo, our deadline for domestic students applying for this competition is February 1st. And while it is important, and we strongly recommend that students apply for these external scholarships, it's also important to note that if you are successful in receiving one of them, your department may reduce or adjust any departmental funding you were offered. So ensure that you discuss this with your department graduate coordinator to find out what the impact will or could be. All right, we realize that applying for these scholarships can be daunting. It's a lot of information. It's definitely something to consider seriously, as a lot of time and effort are put into applying, from yourself as the applicant, from your referees who write reference letters, from department and faculty institutional selection committee members. But it's also very rewarding, especially if you're successful. It's great experience to go through the application process and reach out. It's also a way to network and reach out to faculty members and have conversations about how they can support you. And if you continue in academia, you'll be applying for research grants. So this is a really great experience to go through. In order to support you with applying, we do have resources available to assist. For each of the major scholarships, we have dedicated web pages that contain information pertaining to eligibility, application instructions and processes, checklists or key steps, timelines, and that sort of thing. In the past, we've had different platforms for providing an opportunity to share instructions on how to apply for these competitions and answering questions, from in-person presentations to webinar formats to a live Q&A session in September, where prospective applicants could listen to some insider academic advice and ask their scholarship questions. Last month, Professor Liz Nilsson, who is our Assistant Vice President, Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, and Professor Kirsten Mueller, Chair of the Biology Department, provided a lot of helpful advice from an academic perspective to students interested in applying for these major scholarships. If you didn't get a chance to see the presentation or just want to hear their advice, please check out the video that's posted on our scholarship competition resources webpage. And the link is located at the bottom of this slide, but I believe it's also being added into the chat. As an applicant, you are also encouraged to seek feedback on your draft applications from your current faculty supervisor, a faculty member who knows you reasonably well and can offer constructive feedback, the graduate officer or associate chair of your department, fellow scholarship applications, so do a peer review, as well as from the Writing and Communication Center. Our colleagues in this office have experience with scholarship applications and are available by appointment to offer feedback. And if you're also interested, there are some sample tri-agency research proposals from successful applicants that can be found in SharePoint. The link to that site can be found on each of our tri-agency web pages. Please remember, if you are applying for scholarships, don't leave it to the last minute. Give yourself and your reviewers lots of time so that you can submit the best possible application, and you can make sure that you do a thorough review before you actually submit. Also, please keep in mind, even if you're not 100% sure if you want to pursue a graduate degree, whether it's your master's or a PhD, if you're eligible for the scholarships, you should apply. Again, like I said, it's great experience. It gets you out there, it gets your name out there, it allows networking opportunities. And if you're successful with the scholarship, you can always turn it down if you decide not to pursue a grad degree. So in case you are entering into a program that does not offer funding, we have a few databases referenced on our website that you may wish to review. The first is an internally managed graduate awards database where we post all awards that Waterloo is administratively involved in, from the collection of applications, selection of recipients, and payment of awards. It's a search engine where you can enter specific fields and get results. The others listed on this slide are external databases that we post on our website that include opportunities, many of which are for international students that are available through external firms or agencies. So if you are looking for additional financial resources, I encourage you to take a look at these and see if there's anything you may be eligible for. Okay, so now that I've gone through various funding opportunities and some tips on applying, you'll likely want to know how you receive the money, which is always important. As I indicated in the beginning of this presentation, my team is responsible for managing the payments of graduate awards that are paid through Quest. The majority of institutional awards, including the GRS, are initiated by your department or faculty on a term-by-term basis to our office. Ideally, the paperwork is submitted by your department or faculty to our office at least 1 month prior to the start of the next term. However, it's not uncommon for paperwork to be received throughout the term as well. Once our office receives the electronic paperwork for awards, the award gets coded to your account in Quest. Unless you've made a bank payment to fully cover your tuition and fees, scholarships that are paid through Quest are first applied to your tuition and fees, providing that you have arranged your fees through Student Financial Services, which you can do through the submission of a promissory note. If there is a credit balance on your account, then a refund is released. And I encourage you to review the full details about the payment process and refunding of credits on our website. And as indicated on our website, funding you receive can change because of various reasons, such as changes in enrollment status. So if you change from full-time to part-time, or you go inactive or withdraw from your program, those all have implications or could have implications on any funding that you're in receipt of. If you change your immigration status, so if you're an international student and then you become a permanent resident, your funding can change, as well as your tuition and fees. Any changes in your funding. So if you receive certain major awards, your departmental or institutional funding could be adjusted. I really encourage you to contact your department graduate coordinator if you have questions about this particular aspect. I know that I refer to your department coordinator a lot. They are a wealth of knowledge. They are through you from the full life cycle of a student, pretty much from the time of you're applying for admission to being accepted, to your records, to convocation, everything in between. They process the awards and scholarships as well as payroll. So they have a very busy job, and we're so respectful of their time and their wealth of knowledge. So I think your department graduate coordinator is going to be one of your key contacts, and I encourage you to reach out to them. So you heard me mention OSAP earlier on in the presentation, and some of you may be wondering what it is. OSAP is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. It's a provincial loan program within Ontario that provides domestic students who are Ontario residents with assistance based on financial need. It is a loan and needs to be repaid shortly after completion of your program. If you are an eligible student and are concerned about paying for your upcoming expenses, you should be applying for OSAP or your home province for financial aid as soon as possible to avoid any funding delays. There is one online application on the OSAP system that allows you to be considered for any OSAP loans and grants based on your income and expenses for the term for which you're applying for the funding. The grants and loans are released and managed through our Student Awards and Financial Aid Office, which is separate from Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. After your assessment comes through, and if you're able to receive both a grant and a loan, you have the option of accepting only the grant portion, which does not need to be repaid. If you need assistance in determining how to report your study period income, please reach out directly to the folks in Student Awards and Financial Aid. So as I indicated, it's actually the SAFA office, so Student Awards and Financial Aid. Sorry, I didn't clarify the acronym earlier. They are the ones who manage OSAP and provincial student loans. So if you have any questions about those programs, please reach out to them for assistance at the website link on this slide. Okay, so that concludes the formal part of the presentation. I know it was a lot of information, but I'm happy now to address some questions that have come in. Miranda is one of my colleagues, and do you have any questions for me, Miranda?
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for that presentation. You provided a lot of helpful information for all of those attending that I'm sure will come in really handy. As you mentioned, our team has been busy in the background answering a lot of questions, and we have had some come through that have been flagged that we think that all of the audience members would benefit from hearing from. So I'll just jump in if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Miranda.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first one is there any funding for part-time graduate students?
Okay, yep, that's another frequently asked question. As a general rule, no, there is not. There could be some bursary programs. I know that SAFA has some part-time bursaries. If there's a situation where you were registered full-time and you have to go part-time because of medical reasons or family responsibilities or something like that, your funding may be adjusted or prorated, but that's really up to the department to determine that. Or if you were receiving like a tri-agency or a provincial OGS scholarship, we'd have to look at that and what the reason is. There are some concessions for having the funding like prorated.
Great. Okay, another one that came through is there any type of funding that students who are in course-based programs that they could apply for?
Yep. So although the funding opportunities are limited for course-based students, they could apply for a bursary. But typically when they are offered admission to a program, the department generally does not offer a funding package to students in course-based programs. So it's really important that you have other plans, your own financial resources to support you. Of course, we know that emergencies come up. So there are bursaries, or you could, if you're a domestic student, you could apply for a loan. You could check out the database. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you could apply theoretically for an OGS, or if you've got, even if you're in a course-based program, but still doing, say, a research paper or some element of research, you could theoretically apply for the CGSM, that's the Canada Graduate Scholarship Master's Scholarship. But yeah, it's really, you need to look into, you could look at the database, but there are very limited funding opportunities for course-based master's students.
Okay, all right, thank you. I have another question that's actually a little bit, it's relevant to what you were just speaking about. Is being accepted into a master's program contingent upon having funding?
Um, no, it's not. It's usually, I mean, I would say no, it is not. There's no like prerequisite that you must be a funded student before we will consider you for admission. Some students get sponsorships from their government, but really there's no like prerequisite for that or requisite for having that. It's just you need to be able to make an informed decision and a conscientious decision, knowing what funding, what your offer of admission looks like and what your funding package, if any, looks like, and give that serious consideration. Because like I said, the financial assistance programs that we have available, there's limited funding in those. We can't fund everybody, and it's meant as assistance, not as your primary source of financial support.
Yeah, and it might be a good idea to look at that cost of living link that was put into the chat earlier, just to see how much it does cost to live in the region and how much each program costs, just so that you know if you're going to have
Absolutely.
enough resources. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Miranda. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Another question that came in is, should we apply for scholarships before receiving an acceptance into a program?
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, oftentimes like undergraduate students, they may be undecided if they want to pursue graduate studies. So yes, you can still apply in advance. I think a lot of our programs do have an admission deadline of February 1st. So like I said, the majority of the scholarship competitions, their deadlines are in the fall term. So you can apply in the fall for the scholarship and then follow up by applying for admission to the program, and you'll be evaluated. And hopefully if you're admitted to the program and successful with scholarships, then you'll have your own funding to support you during the program.
Great. So speaking of getting scholarships to help fund your program, we have a person here asking about they're currently in their first year of their PhD, and they're still trying to figure out what their research topic is. They want to know if you recommend waiting till they have completed their first year and then apply for scholarships, or is it okay to apply this early?
It's totally okay to apply right away as soon as you're eligible. There's no limit on the number of times you can apply. There is a limit on your eligibility in regards to the number of months completed in a program at the time of application. So it all depends on the eligibility requirements of the program. But as long as you're eligible, you can apply numerous times. Like for OGS, you can apply every year. For the doctoral scholarships, you can apply more than once, again, considering like that you're eligible. But yes, and each year the candidate pool changes as well. So you might be, in one year, you might be up against more master's students applying for a doctoral level scholarship than current doctoral students. It really fluctuates. So if you're eligible, we encourage you to apply. And also it just builds on your experience. You get your CV built up, you get your research proposal built up, even though you're not 100% sure what you're going to be honing in on your research, but I think it's good experience. It helps you develop, and the next year when you apply, you can build off of that.
That's great. Yeah. And now we have someone that's asking, how do you recommend that they draft their research proposal?
Well, I think usually on the eligibility criteria or the application instructions for the scholarships, it will say what the selection criteria actually is. So it'll say like your research proposal should be kind of sectioned off into different things. You want an introduction, you want to build in maybe a background of what you've done so far, as well as your research methodologies and timeline. So you really want to structure it properly and ensure that you're within the page limits as well. And for some competitions, it's like a 1-page research proposal, and others it's 2 pages. Make sure that you use up the allowable space. It's not good to see blank space left open. You know, and you want to really build into there why your research is important to the advancement of knowledge, like especially for like the OGS and the tri-agency scholarships. These are funded from the governments, provincial and federal governments. That's taxpayer dollars. So you're trying to show the public like why you deserve these scholarships. Why is your research important? What is it going to do for society? So make sure that you've got you know, you can convey that importance in reasonably understood language, because the other thing is although applications are reviewed by committees, and committees are usually comprised of faculty members from other institutions, they may not necessarily be an expert in your field. So you want to make sure that you are articulating your research in easily understood language, I would say. And again, to help build out your research proposal, there's the Writing and Communication Center who can also help, as well as your supervisor or faculty member. And then, like I said earlier, we do have sample research proposals on our website as well.
Yeah, and I put that link in the chat. So make sure you do go back and check that site out. They're on SharePoint. The other thing too is maybe reviewing the insider academic advice. They really addressed a lot of the points you just mentioned. So
yeah, thank you.
That was put in the chat as well, which is awesome. Okay. A student has a following question. If the research I did in my undergrad is in a different area than what I'm doing right now, should I try to incorporate that into my scholarship application?
Yeah, you definitely can, but you don't want to, I would say you don't want that to be your focus. You want the focus to be more on what your goals are. What do you hope to accomplish and how? You know, so don't focus so much on what you've already achieved. They want to see how is it branching off, or how is it extending that research that you've already done. Yeah.
Great, that's good. Okay, so a student is wanting to know what the ideal timeline is to secure funding and to choose a supervisor.
Well, I mean, pretty much at any time. Again, if you're already in your program and, you know, you've been offered admission, you know what funding you're getting. I would say that's a tricky one, because it's like basically as soon as you know you're eligible, you should be applying for these. And sorry, what was the other part about choosing a supervisor?
Yeah, securing a supervisor.
Yeah. That's probably more a discussion to have with your department, I would say, because yeah, some students, I think in their first term, they don't have a supervisor yet. So that could be also dependent on your program as to when you need to have those things solidified.
Right. Here's one that's a bit more specific, but kind of in the same topic there. They say, hello, I'm an international student who is considering applying for a PhD in public health sciences. I contacted a supervisor who informed me that due to limited funding, she might not be able to consider this student. She wants to know if she can go ahead and apply for external scholarships, and can she do that before securing a supervisor? And
yes,
I feel, yeah, they should go ahead and do that. Good.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if I think too, like if the supervisor or that faculty member is unable to take on another graduate student, you know, but they're in an area of research that you're interested in or that aligns with what you're interested in, you could probably follow up and say, you know, is there anybody else that you'd recommend? Or make sure that you check out the actual program webpage and take a look at the profiles of the faculty members to see what area of research they're in.
Great, thank you. We have a student here that's finishing up their PhD, and they want to know what funding opportunities are available for their postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Waterloo.
Wow. Well, congratulations on
Yeah.
nearing the completion of your PhD. That's awesome. So we have launched in the last 3 weeks or so, 3 opportunities. There's the AMTD postdoctoral funding program, and that program is seeking to support global talent. It's $70,000. Information is on our website. Sorry, I don't have I wasn't the focus is not on postdoctoral funding, but I'm happy for the question anyway. So there's AMTD. There's also a program for interdisciplinary research. So applicants do need to have secured 2 prospective host supervisors, preferably in 2 different departments or faculties, where they're coming at the topic of research from sort of different perspectives. And then there is a specific opportunity that is for scholars who are Black or Canadian Indigenous. And they're 2-year fellowships, all of those. So information is on our website under postdoctoral funding. And yeah, so we are collecting applications now. The deadline is December 1st. There's kind of a 3-stage process. If you're interested in applying for these, there's a letter of intent form that you complete, identifying who you're hoping the prospective supervisor is. So you fill that out. The recommended deadline to complete that form is actually tomorrow, which is October 27th, in case you're listening back to this later. That's sort of a soft deadline. If the proposed faculty member is willing to support you, then they would go ahead and complete a supervisor endorsement form. And then that's kind of the go-ahead for you to complete the application. And yeah, all of this information is available on our website. And I think, Miranda, you just added that in the chat. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
Carrie did that. That's
Oh,
great.
sorry. Thank
Okay,
you. Thanks
no
a lot.
worries. That's good. Wonderful.
Mm.
Okay, I have a student that is asking for you to share some information on scholarships or funding opportunities for international students that are pursuing their master's degree and have already accepted their offer.
Okay, so you could be considered for the International Masters Award of Excellence, or the IMA, as I indicated. That is a total of $12,500 across 5 terms, so $2,500 each term. And that is up to the departments to select you for that. So that may or may not have been in your offer of admission, but I encourage you to speak to your department about that. And then you could also apply for the Ontario Graduate Scholarship if you are already in your program. So you have to have started and be in the program at the time of application for that. And then the Vanier is the highest level tri-agency doctoral scholarship, and international students are eligible to apply for that as well. There's other international funding resources available on our website, many of which are like sort of external sources as well that you can take a look at.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we'll just take one more question here. There's someone asking, are there any scholarships or funding opportunities available for experienced professionals looking to pursue higher studies?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing precluding them from applying for any of these awards. It depends if they're going into a course-based master's program or a PhD program, but definitely you could be applying for the OGS or tri-agency scholarships if there is research involved. And again, professional experience counts for a lot as well. You may not have like a lot of publications, but the review committees take other things into consideration as well. So I think it's worth exploring the eligibility and selection criteria of those opportunities.
That's great. Thank you so much, Heidi, for answering these questions live. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
So I think we'll stop there. And if anyone else has further questions, please make sure that you look at our contact webpage that was also included in the chat. Under each person's name, it lists what programs they manage, and feel free to email us anytime. We're here to help. Thanks again, Heidi.
Yes, thanks, Miranda. So yeah, in conclusion, I just want to thank you for attending and for all the questions that were asked. That's just great. We can appreciate that all of this may seem daunting, but there is a team of resources here to support you as you navigate into looking at funding options for graduate studies. I encourage you to check out our robust website for information, inquire with your department graduate coordinator that you're interested in undertaking graduate studies in, or reach out to our office for assistance. We're happy to help. If we couldn't address your questions at today's session, or if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to join us in our virtual live chat on November 3rd from 10 to 12, where my team and I will be pleased to assist you. Miranda, I think you're going to add the link to the live chat in the chat function here. Once again, a recording of this presentation will be posted to our scholarship competitions resources webpage within the next week. Alternatively, feel free to reach out to your department graduate coordinator, get that relationship in progress, because again, they're going to become your best friend over the next, 2 to 5 years as you, undertake your program. So thanks so much for joining us, and I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Take care now.